Hi, everyone, and welcome to the London Community Week podcast, the official podcast of London Community Week, a global event all about building meaningful long term communities. I'm your host, Kate Bova, and today I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce you our guest, Ilker Akansel. Ilker is a community strategy consultant with a two-pronged specialism with communities of developers and tech and traditional brands, startups and innovation being the first, and talent future for digital nomadism and remote work being the second. He supports the former of this specialism through his own community strategy consultancy that is ilkerakansel.com and the latter through his founding partnership at Talent-led Community Consultancy, which is one of the first consultancies in the world that focuses on talent communities. Ilker, welcome to the podcast. It's such a big pleasure to have you here with us.
Fantastic. Pleasure's all mine. Thank you for having me.
So let's start with you. Tell us more about your role right now and the kinds of projects or communities or clients you are working on.
Well, it's a pleasure to be, to be a guest of this podcast. So thank you very much. And the introduction is a great summary of my background or my focus areas at the moment. There's a couple of additional things that I can actually add to this. Generally speaking, there's a couple of things that the specializations that you talked about in the introduction of myself have actually evolved into. One of them being the creation of entrepreneurship ecosystems through communities, which was which was the subject that I spoke about at last year's event in London of this one. And that means that the entrepreneurship ecosystems they are comprised of several capitals or several dimensions, so to speak. And I argue in my approach that they are, or they should, so to speak, they should be supported by communities, such as communities for investors, for talent, for conversations between institutions or public and private stakeholders in an entrepreneurship ecosystem. The reason why I wanted to focus on this is because I've recently moved to Cambridge in the UK, which is one of the most successful deep tech and life science entrepreneurship ecosystems on the planet. And there's a lot of good things that have been done here since the 1950s and the 60s, when people have adopted a community mindset to get together and then work together towards succeeding in these areas. So what I'm trying to do is also here is to understand and then distill these best practices, and then be able to support through these lessons learned through other places around the world with the lessons learned. So that's my first focus. So it's not exactly right now community strategy per se, which I did for a number of years for technology organizations, and now for life science companies as well, because they're so prevalent in Cambridge. And that's like the first thing. And the second thing is a continuation of what you already said in the introduction, which is basically talent communities. So
Yes.
talent communities it's not something new. If you're listening to this word talent community, you probably have heard about it. When you do the job application, when you look on platforms like LinkedIn, you usually see these advertisements just talking about join our talent community and this and that. So it's not something new, but it's been sort of it's not been utilized properly since its inception a good few years ago. So they're usually regarded and led and maintained as a virtual pile of resumes, CVs. We argue at TalentLed, which is my startup, which is what you've talked about, what you've kindly introduced, that these communities have to be, these groups of people, these groups of talent have to be led as proper, vibrant, active communities to be able to produce the value that they can actually produce for these organizations. That's another thing that I'm working on. I'm sure we'll have the chance to go a little bit deeper into it. But now this world of surprise, surprise, AI, artificial intelligence, and all the tools that we actually have actually made talent communities from nice to have into
Mhm.
a must have. And I
Mhm.
think that the context will come from me to tell you a little bit more about it.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds incredibly interesting and exciting. We had interesting conversation before we started recording this session and our episode, and I know that you have a lot of different experiences, and you're so open to share this experience with other community managers. But I have a question for you. How did you first get into the world of community building? Was this always the plan, or more of a happy accident, and now you are here?
Well, I think of the vast majority of people you've interviewed or you come across in the industry have said that it's been a bit of a happy accident. So mine was the case, and I envy this current generation because with people, let's say like you, like me, they're now inspired and they are able to start their careers outright as community professionals. And I sincerely hope that someone listening to this podcast, this conversation, is inspired to do this as a legit, let's say, career option, which
Mhm.
is something that's happened now, but it was never the case. So my story starts many, many years ago. Well, it originally starts like many of us in school and university, where I started a few clubs. I've been a musician all my life, so I've always been involved in these sort of music societies and clubs and everything. But that's what a lot of people do in school settings. So professionally, my wake up call in a good way was in the 2012 London Olympic Games, when I had the opportunity to work as
Mhm.
a member or a contractor of the organizing committee, and to become a games maker, they would call them, basically people who actually worked for the organization and led the volunteers. So I was working in Manchester at the time, at one of the co-host cities to London, around football games, and the volunteers who actually supported the transport operations for these football games as part of the Olympic program. And what it struck me, I was actually just leading this group of people as they provided their services voluntarily. And what struck me was the volunteer nature of the thing and how powerful it was. So we had all these people just from four corners of the world. Uh, it's a volunteer sort of contribution job as an Olympic volunteer, and these people would just fly out of their own pockets from places like Australia. They would sort of stay at people that they know, just so that they can actually have this wonderful experience at the Olympic Games. And I just thought that this was powerful. These people are not really getting a lot out of it other than just the experience itself. It's not really paid, and all you get is just this involvement that stays with you all their life. So I just thought there's this wonderful power of belonging,
Mhm.
wonderful power of this experience that unites all these people, and that just got me to think more about it. So that's how I basically started thinking about volunteerism and how I can actually enthuse and how I can actually motivate people around
Mhm.
something like a community, like the ethos of a community. And then one thing led to another, and I found myself working for Google, which I did work previously in my life in a different capacity, back in Turkey, which I'm a native of. Um,
Mhm.
Leading the developer communities in Turkey, Central Asia, and Caucasus. So we're talking about 10 countries, about 50,000 developers across these 10 countries, the vast majority of them being in Turkey because, technology and technology education is a big thing where I'm from. That was, the start of my professional journey, to be honest with you. And
Mhm.
I found out that just community is a wonderful thing for the members and the organizations at the same time. And there was this, this magical craft of community building and
Oh.
community management and leadership that is so powerful that actually can provide value for both sides. This is
Mhm.
how it happened. And 2020. everybody remembers it for all the reasons. COVID hit, and the program I was working in was an in-person physical program, and then that had to be forced to change into a virtual program.
Mhm.
And I saw this transition happen, and there was a lot of conversations around the world because we didn't know how long COVID was going to last, and it was thought that online communities were going to be, were going to become part and parcel of our lives forever. So there was a lot of focus on community building, and that's when I started. I bit the bullet and started my own company back in 2020, and I've been working with many different interesting communities, projects, jurisdictions ever since. So that's my story.
It's really fascinating story, especially when you mentioned about volunteering, your student years. What I see, and it's also my own story. A lot of future community managers or future founders of something around community management, they are starting their journey from the beginning, from the university, doing some students' life volunteering, or they do some volunteering in their own city, in their own country. And I had actually very similar story, and also had a lot of volunteering. It helped me to found how different world is and how many different people are around you. And after volunteering years, it really helped me to build communities, because it was easy for me to understand so different people with so different mindsets. And when you're talking about your story, I just want to say yes, yes, I feel you. So
Okay.
yeah. So I just wanted to ask you also about Community Week, because it's coming up soon, and what we'll actually be speaking about. And tell us more about topic, but without a lot of spoilers, just a bit. And why do you think it's important right now?
Well, it's a talk that is so dear to me, and it's and it's a great question, wonderful question, because it's a good segue to the conversation that we've just had.
Mhm.
So Cambridge Life Sciences and everything. So I'm trying very hard not to give away some of the things that I've planned to talk about, because it's a subject that is so dear and personal to me.
Mm.
So I've always been fascinated by the world of science, and even though I trained in computers and IT and everything, it's so cool to be able to just walk the streets here in Cambridge, and you see this plaque in the city centre. It says, like, this is where the announcement of the discovery of the DNA was made, and this is where other things. So this is where sort of IVF was sort of basically conceived as a method. So just walking the streets that all these the scientists, the people that we know in the world, that we read about in schools, it just always fascinates me to this day. And now we're entering a new era where scientific discovery is very much supercharged, or in the brink of being supercharged, by communities. So
Mhm.
we did talk a little bit about COVID. That actually showed the power of collaboration, and the absolute blessing that we actually had, that we had the communication infrastructure and the things like an internet, which actually enabled us to cope. So well, months and months ago, I read an article at BBC. It was about the analysis. They just said, what if the pandemic actually happened in 2005 instead of 2020? So like 15 years before it actually happened, what we would have done to cope with it. And when you come to think about it, Skype is new. That's like the first platform. There's pretty much nothing else. You only have an internet, but not as we know it. There's no social media, or it's very elementary, not compared to today. So this collaboration is, the understanding of collaboration is very limited compared to today. And so therefore this actually also is reflected on science and that kind of collaboration as well. So especially after COVID, it's been understood that scientific discoveries if the communications between the sort of various teams, various scientists, the people around, which have always been since the inception of science as a concept, if these could be made better, if the scientists and the researchers are put together in communities that are vibrant, that are intentionally designed, things move at a much faster pace, and the problems and the challenges of humanity, so to speak, that science is still tackling, like some diseases, some
Yeah.
achievements that we want to do, community appears to be, if just being very bold about it, the best way to enable the solution of these problems, or just accelerate the progress on these. So this
Mhm.
is something that's become very well known to me during my time here. And I really felt compelled to talk about, how community management, professional community approaches, community building is now affecting the world of research and discovery and scientific discovery. That's what I'm going to be talking about. And of course, the companies and the institutions and the organizations around the world have woken up to this. And
Mhm.
I'm very, very pleased to see that they are now adopting, they are now including professional community managers and notions of community, professional community management more and more, where previously it was more about something that they tried to do in-house. And the people who actually did it, they were just part of the normal sort of regular research teams. But now professional approaches are accelerating, supercharging, leapfrogging a lot of things for them. So that's the reason why I felt compelled to talk about this.
Yeah, I wanted to dive into that deeper during the conference, and yeah, I think it will be so deep and unusual, I think, topic, because I didn't hear a similar topic or from other speakers. Can you share with us maybe one or top three takeaways that you hope the audience will leave with after your talk?
Well, so what is really cool, again, trying very hard not to give away some of the
Yeah.
surprises or some of the let's say talking points that I really wanted to stress during my presentation. But so a lot of the things is like, it's one of the things that I can just say straight away is I just want people to understand that people always thought, when we look at the films, when we read about something, we always see one, two, maybe two or three, if we're lucky, like scientists behind some kind of discovery or some kind of progress. So there's always a name attributed to some discovery. It's never the case. So all these discoveries and all these advancements, they've actually been so the result of many years of researchers collaborating and building on each other's work.
Mhm.
So it's not possible for any like single person to discover something like from one end to the other without actually basing their thoughts and their hypothesis on some work that's already been done. That's
Mhm.
something that I wanted to stress, because we are inclined to attribute scientific success to a
Mhm.
lone person or a name or something like that. And actually, one of the things that we are bringing in with community building is, the concept of, diversity and, just equal access to recognition and things like that. That's also been an inherent problem in the world of science. Women and like people from like different genders, like sort of other like underrepresented groups, they've always been forced to take a back seats only until recently.
Yeah. Yeah.
And community building can actually make a full stop to that. So there's been so many stories around, failed recognitions, no recognitions around some very big, sort of discoveries that actually changed our lives. Still to this day, there's still a lot of ground to be covered, and community building is perfect in actually accelerating this kind of level playing field for everyone. I
Mhm.
think we're talking about something that affects the entire humanity. So there are a lot of things that we can actually bring from the idealistic world of community building into the world of scientific discovery, where still many of these things are still being being put in. So those are the things that come to my mind straight away. And without giving too much away, maybe not all of you who's going to be listening to this podcast are going to be there. So
Yeah.
there's a message that I wanted to say. As community builders, maybe you always wanted to just get involved in science, but you were not. But now community building for us, so if you're listening to this, it's possible that you are a professional community builder, and you always wanted to do something for humanity, to solve a challenge that's been actually just tackled for many, many years. Previously, maybe this was limited to the people just working in a lab, or just basically having had the training and everything. But now, as a community professional, affecting this, or just just supporting this, or just making it happen, or at least contributing to the success of this, is now possible. And this is what I will try to say.
Yeah, I think it's deep, clear, and so strategic approach, especially when you're talking about helicopter view, about connection, about science, and about how world is changing and what we need to do. And yeah, it's amazing. And you started a bit to talk about our audience, and I just want to talk more about them, because other thing. So first thing is your presentation conference, it's amazing, but other thing is your actually consultancy, and you have a lot of different clients, you have a lot of different sessions, and we have a lot of community managers here as well who just want to start their journey as community consultants. And maybe you can give, for me especially, and for other community consultants, advices, for example, also like top 3 advices for them, how is better to do community consultancy, or just your do and don'ts in community consultancy.
Well, I did put together a number of different, much longer conversation sessions, talks around community consultancy previously, without, just becoming, just plugging them in shamelessly to this conversation. So consultancy, it's a bit unfortunate that the word consultant has become diluted a little bit in the last few years. So some people actually have been doing consultancy, or they would call themselves consultants, because it was an interim thing. They just didn't want to appear that they were not doing much or something like that. So they just said, I'll just become a consultant. But the thing about it is, just like any work, or any line of work, any specialism, consultancy is it requires a certain amount of expertise. Not just only the expertise. I mean, the expertise will come later on, but a kind of perspective. So a lot of people just try to exchange, or try to substitute a lot of things that they do with consultancy. But consultancy is about advisors, about recommendation, and it's about just recommending something to an organization, or a stakeholder, or a person that would be actually useful for them. So it's not about sort of forcing a kind of, let's say, certain kind of software platform approach, or things like that. It's never about that. It is about thinking about the other party, and just thinking what's best for them in line with the expertise. A lot of people end up sort of forgetting that. And also many organizations, they just call people who implement things as consultants. So my generic advice, is to try and see if you can actually perform consultancy in the form that it is intended. So try and stay away from situations where you are perceived to be a consultant, but in reality you're doing something more operational, maybe more implementative, maybe more sort of sales. Like, nothing wrong with any of these things, but a consultancy is about There's a problem, there's an issue, and it doesn't always have to be a problem. A lot of people just see consultancy as some kind of a problem solving, but it is also opportunity mapping as well. Just look at it from
Mhm.
from the positive side. So there's this age-old saying, every problem presents an opportunity as well. The silver lining and everything. It's most of the time it is the case as well. So there is an opportunity that actually comes in, and as humans, we are more inclined into focusing on the problems because our brains are wired to problem solve. But getting the other person, other stakeholder to see the opportunity is harder, but it is more rewarding. So this is what I would recommend, people to do. So a good consultant, I think, does not only, provide good solutions to challenges and problems, but also points out things where the other person or the organization they're talking to may have missed and may have not seen. So that's like one recommendation that I can make. And
Mhm.
once you get on the same side with the other party, and then make an endeavor to show them what kind of opportunities they can actually see that they may have not have considered before, then you become a business ally, you become a partner, you become someone that they start to to see that you're actually working alongside them. That's a very, very important distinction that only your perspective and your vision can actually bring in.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I think it's a pure inspiration for a lot of community managers who are working with consultancy with different businesses. And I know that one of the most popular question when you're doing consultancy or when you are inside in the company as a community manager, community director, community lead, and so on and so on, the most popular question from the business or from the stakeholders, like, how can we measure success? How we can measure business outcomes when we are doing community? So can you give some your maybe examples? Maybe you have some specific metrics working with different spheres, different fields. So how to measure actually the success and the outcomes to business from community building?
Well, wonderful question, and thank you for asking. And the concept of measurement and return on investment, as we would call in the business, the ROI, is
Yes.
really difficult in the sense that community building is a young discipline. Relatively, it's always been practiced, but it was buried under community, under customer success, under marketing, under a lot of different things. So many of the things that when you speak to organizations or stakeholders inside the organizations, many of the things that they presume that pertain to the community success are metrics that are usually attributed to other fields like marketing, like the number of
Mhm.
active
Mhm.
users or other things. But those are good things to consider when you're looking at the health or the pulse of a group or a community, or let's say a group of customers or developers, and so forth. But I subscribe to the understanding, and I took a lot of inspiration from John Bacon, and of course, all the other people who actually just talked about this. But community is about a journey. So I always felt that community is about journey mapping. Sort of like seeing the or evaluating how the journey is actually going for the members and for the organization. So the community will change an organization and change the members, and I think it's sort of collective change that we need to keep track of. So if we know where we want the organization to lead to go to with the help of this community, and if we have an idea where the members want to be arriving to as part of
Mhm.
this journey, then I think that we have some good measurements, some good KPIs to follow. One of the coolest ones that I've seen was in the world of developer communities, maybe developer relations, you could even call it at some point. So it was a metric called time to hello world. I don't know if you've ever heard about it. So in the world of programming, hello world is the smallest piece of code that actually works. It comes from the old times of the most basic of elementary of programming languages, where you wrote a piece of code which actually displayed "Hello World" in the screen. So when you're able to sort of write "Hello World" to the screen, that means that you've got the very first step of getting acquainted with this particular language. Time to Hello World is a wonderful metric. It actually means that, let's say you are an organization and you wanted to have a developer community, and you wanted to check if this particular developer community has grasped, has learned the language or the platform that you are promoting, that you are developing well. Time to Hello World is the time that any developer who's come across this particular language or platform, and this is the time that it took them to write something that is meaningful, that is operable on that platform. Of course, the shorter this is, it means that your documentation is better, your community that supports this developer is better, that just everything. You just want this to be as, let's say, short as possible, as easy as possible. So this is like one metric that actually is related to the developer's journey as they tackle with the platform or the language that you are promoting. So that's like one thing I can say from the top of my head.
Yeah, I think it's a good game changer. To pay attention to this metric, I say, and just then to develop other KPIs, quantitative, qualitative around the community. So, yeah, it's interesting approach. Interesting approach. Thank you, thank you for sharing. And I also know that you paying a lot of attention to different trends or shifts in community, in digital world, in AI, and so on. So do you have your I don't know, some favorite trends or favorite shifts that you are paying attention right now in community world?
Well, I mean, there's a fair few. So the shift, I did say, well, research communities is one cool shift about it. So I can see a big trend around community. And so when I say, what I mean by community and is like, just in the previously when we started this, let's say, specialism, it was about well, if your organization wants to build a community, or wants to get involved, or you want to grow your community, or you want to make it better, we can do pretty much anything about it. We can just write strategy and just help you lead the community and stuff. So it was about just community as a mechanism, as a tool, as a platform, as as a thing. A lot of us were enthused to do a lot of just anything that's related to community. But now I can see that there's now a bit of a specialization. One of the reasons why last year I talked about ecosystems. This year I talked about I'm talking about research communities. Also in March, when we had this prequel event to this one, it was the online event, the Community Week one. I talked about talent communities. So in my approach, or in the way that I'm just looking at things, there's always a community and. So I always thought that community is a wonderful tool, and a wonderful addition, a wonderful strata that could be that could actually help supercharge a lot of things. But it's important to prepare its place, its let's say its connection with the other things that are related to the area that you're working in. I mean, explaining more is about, for example, talent communities is a wonderful enabler now for talent leadership. So research, for example, communities of scientific researchers are a great enabler for life sciences or education or academia. So what is also happening is that community, just like as I was saying a moment ago, is actually changing them, is actually transforming them into something else. There is a deliberate choice of words on what I've just said a moment ago about talent leadership. I didn't say recruitment. I didn't say human resources.
Yeah.
I think it's about we're talking about talent leadership. It just needs a new way of approach, because just the mechanical approach of recruitment or a mechanical approach of human resources in an organization doesn't cut it anymore. These people, they have to have a say in the current and the future of an organization, and they should be, they should not become just a support mechanism or a support division anymore, because that kind of because talent is the best, the top thing that the organization will ever have. And without the right talents, there's nowhere that you can really go. So to define that new approach into leading talent, managing talent, community is a perfect way of doing that. So this is like the sort of trend that I'm actually seeing. Take the talent leadership or recruitment or that kind of industry out and just replace it with anything else. And that's what I'm believing, that's what I believe to be the future. So everything is now supercharged, is now changed, is now transformed irreversibly by the injection of community and community building. And this is one trend that I'm seeing. So who knows what next year is going to bring and what kind of trend that I'm going to be talking about next year. One trend that I'm, just for the listeners of this wonderful podcast, I can just reveal, because I work for the London Olympic Games, I foresee, started to talk like some characters from the well-known fiction series. I foresee that the next trend, for example, in entrepreneurship, especially in certain jurisdictions, will actually come from the world of sports. What do I mean by that? Is that I really passionately believe that the Olympians, the athletes, the sports people around the world, they are the perfect investors and startup founders of the future. And one of the biggest
I
opportunities
agree.
now is because these people have been practicing sport all their life. Once they retire and once they finish up with what they do, they will benefit massively from communities that can actually teach them to become an investor or a founder or just something else. So I know that already bigger organizations like International Olympics Committee, they already have athlete communities that support not only the athletes that are already competing in the competitions, but also preparing them for the afterlife, so to speak, for what's going to happen after, when they hang their sort of boots or whatever else. So this is another trend that is already happening, and I'm already collaborating and working with people in this field.
Whoa, Ilker, thank you very much for so many different thoughts. And when you remember one thought, then you're talking about something else. And I think a lot of our colleagues, a lot of community managers found a lot of insights here in the podcast during your story and what you're doing now. So I recommend to subscribe to Ilker on LinkedIn and to follow his website, because I saw a lot of different videos, a lot of different lectures, episodes, and so on. So Ilker, thank you very much for your time today, for your passion, for your energy. I know that I will see you in London, and I'm happy that we will do that offline. And thank you very much once again, and see you offline in London.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me be part. It really made me happy. It really made my day, and I'm really looking forward to seeing you and also colleagues from the community world and the wonderful people who decide to participate in the event. It's going to be the biggest event in Europe in community building, so I hope to see you all there.
Oh, yeah. So thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening, and see you in London. Bye bye.